Right, it's Thursday morning. You're very welcome along to OTB AM. It's Ger Gilroy and Owen Sheehan with you all the way through until 10 this morning. And, well, there's still plenty for us to talk about, to pick over the carcass of what was the European Super League, because this morning they're suggesting that maybe a British version of the Super League might be about to be foisted upon us or released, depending on your viewpoint, because Celtic and Rangers are being linked with a move to whatever that league will now be called. And maybe they'll just merge the English football and Scottish leagues, which would seem to go against the geopolitical trend at the moment of Scottish independence. But look, we'll deal with that a little bit later on. Tom English is going to join us. In the meantime, we've got to parse through the latest crazy comical alley interview that Florentino Perez has done. Owen, good morning to you.
Good morning. Yeah, it seems that Florentino Perez kind of wakes up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night regularly and decides to go on television, and then we wake up and we look at his ridiculous quotes, and that has happened once again this morning. So
part of me kind of feels like Florentino Perez is telling the exact truth here, and it's so Johnny Lew's piece is carried in the Irish Independent today. European Super League may have died a death, but the cartel lives on. And like, I mean, you know, you've all seen Narcos or some variation of it. The cartel never dies, just whoever is at the top gets killed and replaced, and somebody new pops up and they do even better in the future. Florentino Perez is saying, we haven't gone away. We haven't gone away, you know.
But is that a stupid thing for him to be saying at this point? Like he said, the Super League is not dead, it's on standby and we'll work on the project. All 12 founder clubs signed the same contract, and he said that nobody has yet paid the penalisation fee. So a contract still exists. Nobody's broken their contract with the European Super League thing. You're right, this thing hasn't gone away. But if you want to stay part of the cartel, you go to ground for a while, and Florentino Perez is not going to ground.
Could we just briefly workshop? I come to you, you're a billionaire owner of a football club. We have a dinner in a very nice restaurant in America, apparently. That was what happened first. And we're like, look, this league is good. I'm making 100, 150 million a year, or 500 million every 3 or 4 years. I'm just whipping it out of the club. It's grand. But like, we could literally be printing money if we wanted to, by never having the threat of relegation and just selling our rights ourselves and not really releasing our players to international football if we didn't really want to. How would we go about that? Okay, great plan. Now, how do we bring people with us? What's the correct answer to bring people with, to bring fans and to bring football, I want to use this word carefully, consumers, with, how do you bring people with you so this outcry doesn't happen? What would you have done now if you knew what the outcry was going to be in retrospect?
Include a promotion relegation mechanism. It's as simple as that. I think that the outcry would have been diminished if there was a promotion relegation mechanism in this, and that completely defeats the whole purpose of what they were trying to do. This idea that you're guaranteed your revenue every single year, because if you're Arsenal or Spurs, you're probably going to get relegated pretty quickly from a European Super League, and there goes your revenue straight away. Can you get back into the European Super League? Like, it just defeats the whole thing. So without that...
Okay, so you can't have that. I'm saying you can't have that. I'm thinking almost exclusively in terms of bringing public perception with you. What do you need to do? Like what Florentino Perez did last night when he went... It's a radio studio, the interview, it's not a million miles away from our one, and he's sitting there going, this project is not dead. He's telling the truth. He is absolutely telling, this project is not dead. This version of the project is dead. And it might be a little while before they all reconvene and kind of, you know, meet across the room and go, well, that didn't work out. I mean, it was your fault, really. No, it was, and once that bit's over, the next generation of administrators in these clubs will come forth and go, we need the Germans for a start. We need Paris Saint-Germain, because we do. And what then? What bit changes the mind of the public?
Like, I don't know, but one thing that might help is if UEFA are in a weaker position and if the domestic leagues are in a weaker position. The thing was that the status quo was better than what people were breaking away to, and the relatively, I guess, uninspiring format that was being proposed. Sure, there was a sense of, like, I mean, if this thing had happened, there would have been a sense of interest in how this thing would actually go, but nobody was willing to accept the consequences of seeing this thing play out. The thing is, the product wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough in comparison to the Champions League and to the domestic leagues, and that maybe is what this whole thing boils down to.
I actually think that the product, they never explained what the product was, right? They never said it's going to be So the brilliant story yesterday, I can't remember, and I'm apologies, but somebody came out and found the details that the PR company had been hired on Sunday afternoon for this announcement on Sunday evening. And it was like, okay, there's a big problem, because no one had a strategy to bring people with them. If you were to say to the Liverpool fans, the Man United fans, the Arsenal fans, the Chelsea fans, Spurs fans, and all the other big clubs, and actually have 15 founding members, including all the other ones, some of the Germans as well. This is going to guarantee top quality football every Thursday night for the rest of your lives. Every Thursday night is going to be a night of big football, and you'll continue to play in your domestic league. It's the best of both worlds. If they'd put that story out there 7 months ago, 3 years ago, this is a possibility, it's on the table. Do you really like all those crappy early stage Champions League games? This might have had a chance. But the trouble was they burst out and they allowed the narrative to be seized in all of the countries by the Gary Nevilles of the world and whoever it was. And so the outrage bubbled up, because let's face it, we live in an outrage. We live in a world where outrage is a commodity, and it's brilliant. It absolutely was the type of thing that everybody was tuned to the TV going, these people are incredibly angry, much angrier than I've ever seen them about anything before. But what specifically were they angry about? They were angry about the absence of relegation. I mean, almost all of those teams qualify for the Champions League 8 years out of 10. So it's not like that relegation is a real thing for them. The bastardization of football, the money that has been pumped into the top tier of English football has completely separated those top 6, top 8 clubs in England from the rest of football. The notion that we're going to see many teams bubble up from the lower divisions who haven't at some point in the past been a major club and become a top-tier European team, I can't really see it. Maybe Leicester can do it with the help of their billionaire owner. Perhaps, plucky Leicester will be able to get there. And it will be, in some cases, it'll seem like it's a football miracle, but it isn't really a football miracle because there's so much money there. I think that the European Super League and the variation of what we're getting with the new Champions League are not a million miles apart. They're going to grandfather in teams who don't qualify for the Champions League. There's no relegation from the Champions League because you have to qualify for it. It's kind of a reverse. It's a fairly similar thing. It's just that UEFA get to keep more of the money. When the clubs are looking at UEFA going,
what have you done to deserve it?
Well, you win this one, buddy. You win this one. But actually, did you really? And if you look at how quick UEFA were like, we're all buddies again. This is fine. We're all buddies again. I don't think anything's going to happen here. I don't think there's going to be any repercussions for those clubs. I would be amazed if there are. And the other thing that's come out is the Tory government. Remember who you're trusting here. The Tory government are going to have an inquiry and they're going to have a commission, and they're talking about having a fan-led investigation into what the future of football should be like. Are we really saying that the Tories are going to come out and say that at the end of this we need ownership of football clubs to be transferred from billionaires, from some of the most successful capitalists in the world, to the people? Is that what we expect the Conservative Party of England to do? To say, we think that we should seize the assets of rich people and give them to what the Tories would say are poor people? Is that what we expect Boris Johnson to say? Because he ain't going to say that. He's on record as saying back in 2006 that it's Conservative Party policy that people should be able to buy and sell football clubs. Because it is. That's what they want. They want somebody to own the football club and to make profit from it. That is the official economic policy of the Conservative Party in England. So if we're looking for them to begin some socialist collective where the fans suddenly are given the opportunity to take power again, it ain't going to happen. That's why I have no faith that anything is going to come of this beyond a quiet truce. You remember the Germans and the Allies played football on New Year's Day? That's what's going to happen for a week or two. There'll be a bit of football played, some kind of funny photo ops where Agnelli and Ceferin meet, and maybe the godchildren are playing in front of them, and there's one of those, one of those looks, and that's it. That's the end of this.
Yeah, it is in the Conservative Party's interest, obviously, to play the tune that the crowd want to hear, and they've certainly done that for the last couple of days. But the policy changes we are talking about affecting in English football are at odds with the policies that the Conservative government would like to install in every walk of British life. It is a very un-Tory thing, the movement that has happened this week in English football, which I think leads me to agree with you that this isn't a movement that will go much further at all. When it comes to affecting real change, sure, there'll be fans out in the streets, but I guess this kind of comes back to, if you look at, say, one of the last two British general elections, there was like this general sense of shock when the votes came in, and it was like, hold on a minute, Twitter isn't actually a real indication of British life. Everybody on my Twitter feed was voting for Labour, and all of a sudden Labour haven't got in. Like, I wonder if actually when it comes down to the real important step on this, will things move in a very conservative manner? Like, your point about this being a little bit hypocritical about, I guess, the fact that capitalism has infected English football to the point of no return already is true, but it doesn't mean that you can't be unhappy with what the Super League represented as well. That, of course, we can accept how football has completely become an evil thing over the last 15 years in particular, but it doesn't mean it needs to become more evil.
Maybe. I mean, I feel like you haven't been paying attention if you've just woken up to this. And look, Johnny Lew says it's a great awakening has happened in English football, and maybe that's true. Maybe this is the start of a grassroots movement where everybody goes back to their local clubs and stops buying their kids Man United jerseys or Liverpool jerseys or whatever. Maybe. I would be hopeful that this will actually help improve people's connection with the League of Ireland, for example. But, like, I don't know. I mean, people in Ireland getting very exercised about the match-going fans in another country. If you're a match-going fan from Ireland, you go to matches in England, fair play, you have 100% buy-in, I get that. But for the rest of us who watch our teams on the couch being that upset about the fact that there wasn't going to be relegation, even though the leagues themselves were probably not going to be that different. I mean, obviously the competitive balance because of the money would be changed, but maybe you could legislate around that. I don't know. It all felt like people, the outrage commodity reached its absolute peak. And what was everybody specifically angry about in retrospect?
It did reach its peak, but I was thinking, like, this is no... I hate to pick out Liverpool Football Club here, but it's the perfect example. I was thinking, when was the last time that Liverpool fans were as angry as this with John W. Henry? And they weren't as angry at this point, but they were angry with him in January when they didn't sign a high-quality enough centre-back. Now, it was nowhere near the anger that they were shown this week, but the last time Liverpool fans were angry with their owner was when they didn't sign a centre-back, when they didn't pay the money that comes from the grotesque capitalism that has infected football. We will 100% go back to a stage this summer where football fans are complaining about the top brass in their club not paying enough money for the newest superstar. Even Perez last night was saying, if we don't sign Mbappe this summer, I don't think any fan will shoot himself in the head. They know we're doing our best, and if things don't happen, it's because they're impossible. But then he also went on to say it's impossible to make signings like Mbappe and Haaland in general, not for Real Madrid, without the Super League. As if Mbappe and Haaland just don't exist without the Super League occurring. It is okay to have wealth spread out. It is okay to have superstars in more than 12 teams around Europe and have good football that exists in leagues that involve more than 20 people or more than 20 clubs.
But the thing is, from Perez's perspective, the Super League fixes the problem of the petro-billionaires because you can only have 11 players and suddenly you can compete with PSG. Like, there is a competitive imbalance which will begin to manifest itself as the clubs from the Gulf continue to pump their money in at a rate that we have now seen is close to bankrupting Barcelona and Juventus and Inter Milan. Like, what's happened is that the top tier of European football, this group of clubs has split, and at the very highest level are the nation states who can afford to pump in endless amounts of money because they're digging it out of the ground and they can't spend it fast enough. So I can see why, if you're Perez, there's an existential crisis around European football. I can see why, if you're Manchester United and the Glazers and John W. Henry, just see this as an opportunity to, like, bolt on the American system. But those European superpowers, they have absolutely no hope of competing for the Haaland and Mbappe type players in the future unless they're offering the same amount of money. And to me, that's the bit where the system is broken, and I don't know how to fix that. So, and I'm not sure we're going to do it at 7:45 this morning. But if anybody has any ideas, get in touch. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number.